By now you might be like, Alex, do you judge books by their cover? Yes. Yes, I do. What's up guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm Alex, and today I'm going to be showing you just a slice, a smidget of the books that are on my physical TBR list. These are books that I've collected, let's just use those words, collected over the past couple of years. Some of them I actually bought at a book warehouse sale here in Austin, Texas a couple of years ago, and I've been combing my way through all the books I bought at that sale. Hint, it was a lot of books. So first and foremost, I figure we go through the books that are on my fiction list, starting with this new one I got called A Luminous History of the Palm by Jessica Sequeira. It is quite a short book. It's only about 50-60 pages, and actually I thought this was a nonfiction book, so in my intro, if you notice, this is on the nonfiction pile, but actually it is indeed fiction. It says, in the tradition of Walter Benjamin's profane illuminations, Sequeira shows us that history is a gleaming constellation of stories awaiting a storyteller. An intricately crafted jewel of a book that possesses the strange radiancy of dreams, and that's by Carlos Fonseca. So the summary says, under the paving stones, the palm. This little book can be read as a series of small portraits through time, all of which include a palm tree, or it can be read as a revolutionary tract. The palm is a symbol traced through history, a hidden portal to intimate moments that bring geographies and situations to life. So I actually saw this because I was on a company called Supplementary Editions, and I'll link them below. And I saw this book there. I did buy this copy from Half Price Books via Amazon, but I did buy another one of their books, which will be in the poetry section, from them, and I had started reading that, and I can already tell it's going to be a place where I'm going to find really interesting and unique concepts, and so that's where I came across this little book. I am so looking forward to reading this book. This is Shark Heart, a love story by Emily Habeck, and I love the ocean. As you could probably see, I have some ocean memorabilia stuff behind me, and I love flowers as well. And so, you bet when I saw this cover, I was like, yeah, that's me. And I had been getting lots of like Instagram ads about this book. And so finally I was like, okay, what is this book about? And I remember reading the summary, and I just put it on my Christmas list because I was like, well, I have to have it. And my mom got it for me. I have yet to dive into it. My understanding is that this is Emily Habeck's first novel, which is pretty cool. I'm getting a sense that this book is a little bit surrealist. And it might also speak to the times that we live in. So I'm curious about that. And now here's the summary. I'll read you. It is a pretty long summary. It says, a gorgeous debut novel of marriage, motherhood, metamorphosis, and letting go, this intergenerational love story begins with newlyweds Ren and her husband Lewis, a man who, over the course of 9 months, transforms into a great white shark. So there is a little bit of surrealism at play here, which I adore, and I've gotten more into surrealism lately, especially in poetry and in film, and so this is right up my alley so far. And it continues to say, a sweeping love story that is at once lyrical and funny, airy and visceral, Shark Heart is an unforgettable novel about life's perennial questions, the fragility of memories, finding joy amidst grief, and creating a meaningful life. This daring debut marks the arrival of a widely talented new writer abounding with imagination, humor, and heart. It just sounds spectacular. The way it's written, or the way it's structured, I should say, is quite interesting. Let me see if I can focus here. So there's like short snippets. I think on one page I found there was even like, it looked like a play format. Chilean Poet by Alejandro Zambra, translated by Megan McDowell. I haven't read a lot of translated work, specifically translated fiction. I have read some translated poetry, and that's something that I really want to get more into, is just literature from all around the world. And so this will be one of the ones I'll be reading soon. On the back, there's a quote. There's a lot of different quotes from a lot of different people. I'll read one of them. This is from Samantha Schwelblin, author of Little Eyes. She says, his clever irony, his lighthearted yet powerful prose, his gift for capturing this life that passes through and yet still escapes us, everything Zambra has already put into practice in his novellas and short stories explodes with vitality in Chilean poet. Contemporary, beautiful, brilliant. What a magnificent quote that is. His lighthearted yet powerful prose, his gift for capturing this life that passes through and yet still escapes us. You've sold me there. You sold me there. Like, this is moving to one of the top books in my pile for sure. I am excited to hear that he is a short story and novella guy as well. So if I do like this, I definitely will be reading some of his short stories and novellas. The summary says, a writer of startling talent, Alejandro Zambra returns with his most substantial work yet, a story of fathers and sons, ambition and failure, and what it means to make a family. It kind of sounds like Succession, you know. A brilliant show, by the way, but that's a different topic for another day. In Chilean poet Alejandro Zambra chronicles with enormous tenderness and insight the small moments, sexy, absurd, painful, sweet, profound, that make up our personal histories, exploring how we choose our families and how we betray them and what it means to be a man in relationships, a partner, father, stepfather, teacher, lover, writer, and friend. It is a bold and brilliant new work by one of the most important writers of our time. Very excited to read this one and excited to dive into more translated works. Moving along. Another book that I am very, very excited about reading is Moloka'i. This is by Brennert. And I got this book years ago. It was either like my last year of high school or my first year of college, and me and my mom were at Barnes and Noble, and we were looking for books, I think, for my brothers to read over the summer. And a good hibiscus flower really catches my eye. I love hibiscus flowers, and I love anything with the ocean, anything with islands. So in this case, Hawaii. I love learning about them, love reading about them, and so this immediately drew me in. And then I do remember reading on the back that Alan, the author, is a screenwriter in Hollywood, and that was something that I was just getting into at the time. And so I was really excited to read a book made by a professional screenwriter and see kind of what the differences are between screenwriting and novel. And I have yet to read this book. It's been staring at me for years, and I am very excited to say I will be reading it this year. And so I don't know if you guys know about the leprosy settlement in Hawaii or what that was. And so, but that is where this takes place. So I'm excited to read. You know, I remember learning about that in school. It was something that I just never really understood and never really, you know, I never really understood it. And so I remember like reading a little bit about it. And so before I read this book, I'm definitely going to educate myself a little bit more on the topic so that I can get in the mindset of what's going on. And I do really, really want to read this book and just dive into this world a little bit more. So that's this one. The next book is another one of the books that I got at a warehouse sale. This is called Pieces by Helen Oyeyemi. Helen Oyeyemi is widely celebrated as an author who can create a universe that dazzles and wounds, and one of our most exciting, witty, and questioning novelists, as well as quite simply a writer of sentences so elegant that they gleam. In Pieces, she brings her superb powers to an unusual tale of two not quite honeymooners on a train full of wonders big and small. When Otto and Xavier Shin declare their love, an aunt gifts them a trip on a sleeper train to mark their new commitment and to get them out of her house, setting off with their pet mongoose. That's cool. A spellbinding tale from a star author, Pieces is about what it means to be seen by another person, whether it's your lover or a stranger on a train, and what happens when these things you thought were firmly in the past turn out to be right beside you. This is another celebrated author, somebody whose writing has been celebrated and talked about, and so I am excited to dive into this one as well. It's an interesting, the mongoose gets me, okay. By now you might be like, Alex, do you judge books by their cover? Yes. Yes, I do. This draws me in. This This also draws me in, okay? I love a good sleeper train story, like, or just a train story in general. There's something with trains on stories. Like, I remember watching This Is Us, and I think it was the second to last episode, or maybe the last, don't get me wrong. There was like one of the last episodes, they're on a train, and that episode was just written beautifully. It made me cry like a little baby. And I still think I have not been able to rewatch that episode, but maybe one of these days. There was also like Bullet Train, the movie. That was great. I loved that. I feel like train, any like transportation, train, boat, creates a lot of tension in storytelling. So excited to read that. I don't really know much about this one. I remember buying it because I like tigers, and I was born in the year of the tiger. So I think that's part of that. Also, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I love learning about new cultures and reading about other cultures. And I know I said before that I'm a little bit newer to reading translated works, but I'm not new to reading like cultural books or books set in specific cultures, for instance. And this looks like one of them. This is called How Much of These Hills is Gold by C. Pam Zhang. And this is a New York Times notable book. It was longlisted on the 2020 Booker Prize. So another celebrated author. Both epic and intimate, blending Chinese symbolism and reimagined history with fiercely original language and storytelling, How Much of These Hills is Gold is a haunting adventure story, an unforgettable sibling story, and an exploration of race and belonging. But page by page, it's about the memories that bind and divide families and the unquenchable yearning for home. So I love adventure stories, and specifically actually going on adventures. And I do have 2 siblings. I have 2 brothers. So I feel like I'll be able to relate a little bit to this story, but also learn a lot about Chinese culture. And the next book is a book I actually got in a subscription service. I don't know if you can see, I have a Treasure Island book. I tried the Literary Book Club, I think is what it's called. It's like classic books, and it's like very fancy-esque. And so this is a second book that came with with Treasure Island. It's from the same author. It's called Kidnapped. I have no idea what this is about. So this is the first time I'm actually reading the summary. It just says, betrayed by his uncle and sold into slavery, the young David Balfour must do whatever it takes to get home to Scotland, but first he must survive. An enduring and mesmerizing work of literary imagination, Kidnapped is a classic tale of adventure and adversity that has captured audiences of all ages for over a century. I did like Treasure Island. I've read it a few times, once in middle school and then just recently. I feel like that's another thing that I've been missing a lot of, is just like reading those classic books that people talk about in pop culture. I've read some, like Huckleberry Finn, like I read that one in school, but there's like Moby Dick, for example. I have never read Moby Dick. I have no idea what it's about. I know there's like a giant whale. So there's some books like that I really want to dive into. And so this is a rather short book, so I think this will be a good segue into diving into classic books. Moving on, I've heard a lot about this author, Chloe Gong, on like Twitter and Instagram and just social media in general. And so I picked this up at the warehouse sale as well. It's called These Violent Delights. I feel like this might have been like a book that was going around on social media a while ago. I just don't remember. I did like the cover and I've heard of this author, so I was like, sure, I'll check her out. As I was reading this, I was like, this sounds a lot like Romeo and Juliet from like the bits that I remember in school. I feel like I'm not that big into reimaginings of stuff. Like I don't necessarily read them. And so this is like another new territory for me. I was not a fan of Romeo and Juliet reading it in high school. My favorite Shakespeare play is actually The Tempest. I really enjoyed that one. Romeo and Juliet, though, I just didn't relate to it. I like this concept, though, of it taking place in China and there being gangs and rather than like 2 families. And so I feel like that does kind of bring it into a modern, it's like in the 1920s as well. I do love the 1920s, learning about 1920s history. So because I love learning about a lot of things, as you can tell. I'm just kind of all over the place. Now, I know everybody and their mother has probably already read this book, but I have yet to read this book, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have read another book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read Daisy Jones and the Six. I read that a couple summers ago on the beach. It was a nice beach read. I loved it. I liked the because I love the 70s as well. Speaking about the 20s, I like the 70s, and I love rock and roll, and so I just loved the whole concept around it. And I also really like how she did interview style writing instead of just a stereotypical novel writing. I thought that was different from a lot of the books I was reading at the time. So I know a lot of people have been raving about this book a couple of years ago, so I am excited to dive into that. I feel like everybody knows what this book is about. Actually, I don't. I actually don't know what this is about. So I'll read a snippet of the summary because I was like, I don't actually know what it's about. It says, reclusive Hollywood icon, sold me already. I love anything Hollywood. I'm on it. Okay, I'm reading about it. I know I'm behind. Okay, I know I'm behind. Just do not spoil this for me. Had wanted it into thrillers, and I saw that this was a thriller of sorts, and I think this is actually part of a series. And it says the author's Robert Galbraith. I didn't realize that this author is actually J.K. Rowling, which I don't think I've actually ever read something from her before. So I was curious with like just everything, and I saw that this was also like a this is now a TV series, and so this is one of those things where I was getting into screenwriting and thrillers, and I was like, oh, this would be cool to see and watch. But I think the reason I didn't actually start reading this is because this might be like the second book in this series. I don't think it was. I'm actually not sure. There's like there's 2 more books, but I'm not sure which one this is. So that's why I think I just like threw it off to the side and haven't read it yet. But this is on my to-do list. Now this is The Waves by Virginia Woolf. Fun story is when I was in college, I was in my short story and my poetry class. One of the fellow students had told me in the workshop that my work reminded her of Virginia Woolf. And I took that as a compliment, but I actually had never read Virginia Woolf stuff. I was like, oh, cool. Like me and a famous author side by side. That's awesome. But I actually didn't know like, what is Virginia Woolf's style? And so I love the ocean. I think I said that earlier. And I saw this book, The Waves by Virginia Woolf. So of course I was like, I gotta get this book. I mean, look at that. That is gorgeous. And I did start reading this, I think like maybe the first couple years of COVID, and very, very intriguing style that this book has. The way that this book is written is unlike anything that I've read in recent times. Let me see how let me find the words to describe this. It's experimental, number 1. Number 2, each paragraph is like a point of view from a different person. So like this one's from Susan, you can see, and it goes on until here. And then there's another paragraph, and they're just kind of dispersing different points of view. I'm not gonna lie, I only got a few pages in, and I liked it. I liked the vibes. I liked the experiment of it all, but I was a little confused. And so then I was reading more about the book and found out that people recommend reading this like once you've read a couple of her works. So I've kind of just held on to this, expecting to buy some more of her books to read, like not maybe easier books to read. This one was just a little too challenging for me at the time, but I liked the concept and idea. And so I do have a Barnes & Noble gift card I got for Christmas. I'm hoping to buy some of her earlier works and some of her most famous works so that I can read those first and then end up getting back into this. But this is definitely still on the list. And the last fiction book on my physical TBR list, as of right now, because I'm sure I'm going to add more this year, is this one called Her Final Words by Brianna Labuskes, best-selling author of Girls of Glass. I got this from another subscription box a while ago. I'm getting more and more into thrillers as I get older, and so this is definitely, back when I got this book probably wasn't the best time for me to read this book, but now it's starting to be one of my main interests in terms of reading. This kind of seems the same scenario, like you're trying to unlock a puzzle, and I do like puzzles, so that's why this one's on my list. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this journey through my fiction TBR list. There are more books under my bed that would fit into this list, but these are the ones that I'm really excited about and hoping to read this year. And so let me know if you're interested in any of them or if you yourself have read any of them. Just do not spoil it for me, but do let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. And if you have book recommendations that fall in the lines of, culture, translated works, thrillers, leave them down below so I can read them. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And till next time, I'll see you later for my nonfiction TBR list. Bye!